Despite nearly all national polls showing him behind before the voting started, Donald Trump is now President-elect Trump.
The rise of Donald Trump came as a shock to everyone. Started as a publicity stunt, Trump's campaign became the ultimate black sheep. His victory left people baffled.
No one saw this coming, as you pointed out. Donald Trump was not only an underdog, he had his back against the wall.
How did he do it?
What Trump did very effectively is tap the angst and the anger and the hurt and the pain that millions of working class people are feeling.
And soon the big boss behind Donald Trump finally surfaced. It was the CEO of a $160 billion hedge fund, Robert Mercer.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
When Trump announced his bid for the presidency, hardly anyone took him seriously. By the summer of 2016, Trump's campaign was losing steam. A victory seemed impossible. During his speeches, Trump wouldn't stay on message, and he couldn't handle the embarrassing leaks. Republican donors were skipping ships. It seems all but inevitable that Clinton would win. Then Trump's daughter, Ivanka, received a phone call for Rebecca Mercer, the daughter of a mysterious hedge fund billionaire. Robert Mercer. He's a renowned computer scientist who had a strong resentment towards Clinton, became Trump's biggest financial supporter. Mercer brought Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway from obscurity and inserted them into Trump's campaign, stabilizing it during a difficult period. As an artificial intelligence expert, Mercer knew that with advanced data science, voters' behavior can be understood and therefore influenced to Trump's advantage. His tech company, Cambridge Analytica, uses algorithms to help Trump craft every message and actions.
And we can match what you watch in a way that we can begin to select programs to advertise in that have the highest density of the target audience that we're trying to reach.
Growing up in New Mexico, the introverted Robert Mercer had a passion for everything techie, leading him to pursue a PhD in computer science. After working for a government-funded laboratory, Mercer was frustrated by the inefficiencies and the bureaucracies of the government. He took a job at IBM and went on to become a pioneer in computer linguistics. He was so talented that he caught the attention of Wall Street. He was recruited by Renaissance Technologies to develop computer models for trading stocks. He became the key figure that allowed Rentech to grow 10 times bigger in 10 years. And he also became a billionaire himself. With all that money, Robert Mercer wanted to change America by bringing back conservative politics. Since 2008, Robert Mercer had been making sizable political donations, all to conservative candidates. By 2014, Republicans won control of the Senate and the House.
This was a wave, a Republican wave that hit the Democrats and the president hard. And every race that was broke at the end, broke in the Republicans' favor.
And by 2016, with all that money and power, Robert Mercer, along with his daughter Rebecca Mercer, almost single-handedly put Donald Trump in office. That is not the first time a hedge fund manager exerts such a powerful influence on American politics. On the other side of the political spectrum, George Soros has been advancing his leftist movement for decades. Wealthy people have been influencing American politics for centuries, but what makes hedge fund managers especially powerful is because their wealth is more liquid and less constrained. Many hedge funds trade rapidly, which means they can liquidate to cash much more quickly than, for example, tech billionaires like Elon Musk. And they don't have to report to the SEC when they do. As a result of freedom from regulations and a strong incentive to make profits, hedge funds' actions have been increasingly affecting American affairs than ever before. After years of reporting about wealthy people and companies, journalist Alfred Winslow Jones decided to start an investment company himself. But at that time, he doesn't want to sacrifice his freedom and privacy. He envisioned an investment fund that is free from government and market forces, and his performance will be solely based on how good his stock-picking skill is. He came out with the idea of a hedge fund. With every trade, he's insured by having a short position to cancel out the market impact. In the meantime, he kept the number of potential investors to be less than 100 to avoid registration with the SEC. And he only raised money from wealthy people. This was the first hedge fund in history. Little did Jones know, his simple yet brilliant idea will one day become a $4 trillion industry that affects almost every aspect of America. The birth of hedge funds created a new way for wealthy people to get wealthier. They're free to use any strategies to make money. Hedge funds use their investments for hostile takeovers, currency speculations, or to invest in exotic assets. By the 21st century, there were more hedge funds than the number of public companies. Hedge fund managers started showing up on the Forbes richest list. Banks, pension funds, and endowments all become investors of hedge funds.
Around 1990, nearly all the money in hedge funds was from rich individuals. By now, about 2/3 of the money in hedge funds comes from institutions. And that's a transformation. And so it means that university, college endowments have their money in hedge funds, retirement systems put their money in hedge funds, non-profits, like the one I work for, the Council on Foreign Relations, they invest the endowment that's funding the research in hedge funds.
In this documentary, we want to bring awareness about the extent of influence hedge funds have on America. The 33-year-old icon just bought enough shares to become a major shareholder for a public company. After an intense meeting with the board, when he presented his plan for the company that will maximize shareholders' value, Icahn is eagerly waiting to hear back from the company's management. By the age of 30, Carl Icahn had built a successful brokerage business, making him a millionaire, but Icahn wanted more. Recently, he has been testing his new theory that the management teams at American companies are a bunch of cowards. He can buy enough shares to become a major shareholder and use that power to change the company's management, and the company's share price shall rise. In other words, he's going to do hostile takeovers. After the board meeting, the management did not like his proposal, but Icahn decided that he will not go down without a fight. He told the management that he will go for a proxy battle in order to get his proposal approved by shareholders. A proxy battle is an effort by a shareholder of a corporation to convince other shareholders to cast their corporate votes. But instead, the management decided to pay him off by offering him $10 million just to walk away so that the management can keep their jobs. This is what's called a green mail. Carl Icahn had an epiphany. He has found a weakness in American capitalist system. To make money, all he has to do is to threaten to take over a company, and the management will pay him a green mail to walk away. If not, he can fire the management and hire new ones. Either way, the share price will rise. This realization will enable Carl Icahn to terrorize corporate America for the coming decades, amassing nation's greatest fortunes in the process.
It's my money. I worry about the bottom line, because if I lose, I'm answerable to my bank account.
In the 80s, corporate raiding became one of the most profitable businesses for hedge funds. Raiders, as they were called back then, will accumulate controlling positions in a company, and they make profits by splitting the company up or selling some of the company's assets. While some of them did end up benefiting the shareholders, a lot of raiders tend to be short-term driven, often making profits for themselves, while other long-term shareholders lose money. These hedge funds often have the money and the clout to take over a company and fundamentally change its directions. Even for a company like Disney was a target of a corporate raiding. During the 80s and 90s, Disney had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars just to fend up corporate raiders who tried to liquidate Disney's assets for profits. What if Disney somehow was liquidated or sold for parts? What would the world be like today? Targeting a company is one thing, but some hedge funds have gathered enough money and resources to target an entire country.
That the pound was being suspended from the ERM.
The Bank of England just lost some tens of billions of pounds. Prior to that, the Bank of England was a target of attack by a group of currency speculators led by George Soros.
When British government decided to raise interest rates in order to stop the pressure on sterling, I said to my partner, now this is the wrong policy for the British government in the long term. They cannot sustain this. Therefore, you can sell any amount of sterling because it cannot be maintained.
George Soros' Quantum Fund has become a force to be reckoned with. This hedge fund is unlike any other. George Soros' strategy focuses on timing and predicting various economic cycles and trends. He is what's called a macro trader. He trades market indices and currencies. But unlike other macro hedge funds, he doesn't really hedge. He has so much conviction in every bet that he will risk all of his portfolio with one bet. The strategy worked for him. By the 1990s, it made him billions. As the size of the fund grew, Soros has become the catalyst, triggering economic crises and profiting from them. By early 1992, he saw a perfect opportunity like that in England. Soros sold short about $7 billion worth of sterling. Soros also bought $500 million worth of British stocks as a parallel play, because equities often rise after a currency devaluation. He didn't stop there. He also bought German and French bonds while shorting those countries' equities. Because of his strong credit, Soros only had to put down $1 billion in collateral to do all of this. He was leveraged 1 to 10, which was extremely risky. But Soros had a strong conviction that he was right. And just as predicted, he made $1 billion from this series of trades. He was called the man who broke the Bank of England, making him one of the most notorious currency speculators in the world. Soros' Quantum Fund's performance has been so large and so consistent that even Warren Buffett's returns are pale in comparison. But Soros had a bigger ambition. Like many billionaires, he donated money to charities started by himself, which allowed him to influence geopolitics around the world. For a long time, he has been the biggest benefactor for Clintons. Politically, he's the opposite of Robert Mercer. The only thing they have in common is that they're both hedge fund managers with immense power. Now stands a reason to have money and power. All you gotta do is start a hedge fund and make it a success. Not quite. You see, the success of Robert Mercer is a result of using advanced trading algorithms. Ironically, his success has made the market less accessible to the little guys. Over the years, with the advent of electronic trading and advances in science and technology, the market is getting increasingly complicated. The ways hedge funds make money are getting more sophisticated as well.
Sometimes you meet a person, a counterparty, and they'd have something you want. But to trade, you needed to have something they want, and it had to be the right quantity. The odds of that weren't high, and until you found a match, you'd either have to wait or sell at a price lower than you wanted. Now imagine there's a person standing at the center of this marketplace. He or she is willing to trade with everyone. If you want to buy something, they'll sell it. If you want to sell something, they'll buy it. This person is making a market.
Market making has become a profitable business for the hedge funds. To market makers, they care more about volumes than about asset prices. They want more people to gamble. By doing so, they practically become the casino, taking small profits from every bet that you make. There is nothing wrong with making money as an honest market maker. But in the end, you realize that the more you trade, the richer they become.
Robinhood turned the online brokerage industry on its head by offering free trading. But if the trading is free, how does Robinhood actually make money?
Although Robinhood has free commissions, the buyers and sellers on Robinhood actually pay a fee in the end because their orders are being routed to market makers like Citadel. But when hedge funds want to trade, they don't use Robinhood or similar platforms. They trade in what is called a dark pool, where only sharks are allowed.
The fact that almost half of all trading is happening off exchange, and in some retail-heavy names, you're seeing more than 70% of the volume executed in these internalizers or wholesaling systems, and that's damaging the markets. It's widening spreads, and it's a significant information advantage for those two firms, Citadel and Virtu, who operate a de facto duopoly in the internalization market.
Since the financial crisis of 2008, the hedge fund industry has been declining. But at the same time, the top hedge funds still control many major aspects of America.
The hedge fund industry has grown up. It now manages, by some estimates, $3 trillion globally. And the people running the most successful hedge funds are amassing unprecedented personal fortunes. I mean, really on a scale we haven't seen since the robber baron, Andrew Carnegie days. And they are doing this through financial speculation, moving money around, taking money, turning it into more money by kind of speculating in the market. They create relatively few jobs. Many of them in the US pay lower taxes than a salaried employee, a secretary, due to lobbying and various loopholes. And, they take a lot out of the system. So I just think it's important for people to pay attention to what they're doing. They're lightly regulated. They're constantly fighting against increased regulation and transparency.
From activist hedge funds trying to take on big corporations to market makers making profits on Robinhood, hedge funds are still making impacts that are felt everywhere. At the bottom of it all, is about profit-seeking without constraints. If hedge funds are solely made up by wealthy people's money, they can gamble a little. But nowadays, if a large hedge funds like Bridgewater fails, a lot of people's pension money, teachers' pension money, will be gone. At this point, it is unclear what will happen in the hedge fund industry in the future. But one thing is certain. As long as capitalism exists, there will always be someone with an immense amount of money that has the ability to influence the fate of an entire nation. All we can do is to shine enough exposure on them to limit their ability to do evil.